What does it mean to give up the only thing that proves you were ever a hero? Sergeant Elias Kane stood in the dim light of the military tribunal chamber, his boots scuffing against the cold concrete floor. His uniform, once crisp with pride, hung loose on his frame, worn thin by years of service and sacrifice. Pinned to his chest were 5 medals, each a story of blood, courage, and loss. The room was silent except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights and the heavy breathing of the panel of officers seated before him. Their faces were stern, unyielding, as they delivered the order, "Surrender the medals." Elias's heart thudded, a drumbeat of defiance. Those medals weren't just metal, they were his life. The Silver Star for dragging a wounded comrade through a hail of gunfire in Kandahar. The Purple Heart for the shrapnel that still ached in his leg on rainy days. The others, each a memory of a moment when he'd chosen duty over fear. To surrender them was to erase who he was. "Why?" he asked, his voice low but steady, cutting through the room like a blade. The head officer, Colonel Hargrove, leaned forward, his eyes cold. "You disobeyed a direct order, Kane. You put your squad at risk to save civilians who weren't our mission. Those medals are a privilege, not a right." Elias's jaw tightened. He remembered that day in the desert village, the screams of families trapped in a burning schoolhouse, the chaos of an ambush. His orders were to retreat, to prioritize his squad's safety. But he couldn't leave those people behind. He'd led his team back into the fire, pulling children and elders to safety while bullets tore through the air. They'd all made it out barely. Now, the military called it insubordination. He looked down at the medals, glinting faintly under the harsh light. Each one was a piece of him, a reminder of the men he'd saved, the ones he couldn't, and the nights he'd spent staring at the stars, wondering if he'd done enough. Surrender them? It felt like tearing out his soul. But Elias wasn't a man who begged. He straightened, his broad shoulders squaring as he faced the panel. "You can take the medals," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a man who'd seen too much. "But you can't take what they mean." The room held its breath. Hargrove's face twitched, a flicker of something respect, perhaps, or irritation. "You have until tomorrow, Sergeant. Hand them over, or you'll lose more than decorations." That night, Elias sat alone in his barracks, the medals laid out on his cot like a constellation of his past. He traced the edges of the Silver Star, remembering Private Daniels, who'd bled out in his arms, whispering thanks for trying. He picked up the Purple Heart, feeling the phantom pain in his leg where the shrapnel had torn through. Each medal was a story, a life, a choice. How could he let them go? But as dawn broke, Elias made a decision. He wouldn't let the military define his worth. He walked to the local community center, where veterans and families gathered, and pinned the medals to a board on the wall. Beside each one, he wrote a note. "For the lives we saved. For the ones we lost. For the fight that never ends." Word spread. Veterans came, some in wheelchairs, others with scars hidden beneath their clothes. Families arrived, reading the notes, touching the medals, sharing stories of their own. The board became a shrine, a testament to sacrifice that no tribunal could erase. Elias stood back, watching as a young boy, no older than 10, placed a handwritten letter beside the Purple Heart. It read, "Thank you for saving my dad." Hargrove showed up days later, summoned by rumors of the display. He stood before the board, his face unreadable. Elias met his gaze, unflinching. "You wanted them surrendered," Elias said. "I surrendered them to the people who matter." The colonel said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, he nodded. "This isn't what I meant, Kane. But maybe it's better." Elias didn't need the medals anymore. They were symbols, but the real proof of his courage lived in the lives he'd touched, the stories now carried by others. As he walked away, the weight on his chest was gone, replaced by something lighter: hope. What does it mean to be a hero? It's not the medal pinned to your chest. It's the choices you make when no one's watching, the lives you save when the orders say retreat, and the courage to give up everything to prove you were never just a soldier. Elias Kane's medals were gone, but his legacy was untouchable. And that, in the end, was what left the world speechless.